Rose LeMay is standing by in Ottawa. Rose is the CEO of the Indigenous Reconciliation Group. Rose, good to see you again. Thanks for taking the time for us at CTV News.
Thank you, Todd.
Just to clarify off the top, because a lot of this stuff can get lost in the noise, can you explain why some First Nations are against this law in layman's terms?
I appreciate that not all First Nations are against Bill C-5. There is a range of opinion across First Nations, as is across all of Canada. But there is a majority, I would guess, of First Nations chiefs who are concerned about what has also been referred to as a naked power grab of Bill C-5. In Canada, we have a process in which when a major project is considered, it goes through an assessment. It's led by bureaucracies, it's led by science. There's engagement of citizens in that process. Bill C-5 essentially sidesteps that all and gives that power to give a decision whether a major project goes forward or ahead to cabinet. It politicizes it. Now, First Nations also are very concerned that their rights as rights holders, as citizens of this country, protectors of the land, their rights are not enshrined in this bill. And that's a major barrier to relationship. It's a major barrier to reconciliation. And so the tone in the room today seems to be, it's been referred to as a bit icy.
Let me ask you about the summit and your thoughts on, realistically, Rose, what you think will come of it.
I don't know. I am thrilled that Prime Minister Carney is in attendance along with his ministers. That goes a long way to building relationship and building trust. I think at issue is that Bill C-5 was moved through so quickly. There was very little debate. And now government officials are essentially saying, trust us, we will consult, but it's not in the bill. And so while Prime Minister Carney has been in the room this time and meeting First Nations chiefs and doing really well at that, I'm not sure what today's outcomes will be. I suspect an outcome for Prime Minister Carney and his team will to be realizing that they do not have the full support of First Nations on this law, that it may actually create a significant barrier for national projects. Now, First Nations don't want to be that barrier. They want national projects just as much as any other Canadian group. As the AFN National Chief has said, First Nations have been asking for clean water for schools, for hospitals. These are also projects of national interest. They're about our people's interests as opposed to corporate interests. But I think that's something all Canadians can support. What will come out of today, I really don't know. I don't think there will be consensus. I think a lesson, perhaps an unintended lesson, will be that Prime Minister Carney might learn that he can't use a level of corporate speed in this government. This government can't do it at all.
One last question, and you just touched on it, Rose, so I just want to dig a little deeper. The idea of building big for Canada, stop thinking small, let's try and become a superpower, whether it has to do with energy or natural resources. And in order to do that, you have to cut the red tape, the bureaucracy. That in turn will help all Canadians if we can actually build big and think big, and that includes First Nations. You're saying you agree with that, but it's the process by which we get there that is the issue.
Yes. Come on, I use an iPhone, which just uses the critical minerals, which, we all have a stake in the projects and trying to find these critical minerals. Canada does have a lot. Unfortunately, most of them are under First Nations territory, and there is a legal interest reflected in international law, a legal requirement, reflected in international law that First Nations must be more than consulted. And this is where the issue really is. Canadian law is around minimum standard consultation. There's almost a checkbox how much you do have to do to meet that minimum standard. First Nations are requesting and requiring Canada to meet a higher standard of relationship, of free, prior, informed consent. So that's a difference of understanding of law. If we as a country prioritized healthcare as a national interest, how much support there would be. But as long as a national project is categorized simply as something that makes us money, corporate lobbyists will have so much more access and a sped up process to select those projects, and citizens and First Nations will have so much less impact on that.
Rose LeMay joining us from Ottawa. She's the CEO of the Indigenous Reconciliation Group. Great chat, Rose, as always. Thanks for this today.
Thank you. Thank